Hey everyone, my name is Jeroen, welcome to a new video, and in this one I'm going to show you how I built the terrarium that's right behind me. Let's get started. I made this tank for my Crested Gecko Tito, who right now is about 7 months old. As far as I can tell, he really enjoys the tank, because every night when I come to check on him, he's actively exploring. This setup has now been running for about 8 months, and back when I built it, I didn't really record any of the process. However, I did show a few Instagram stories showing off what I was building, so I'll use those to explain what steps I took in order to create this. Alright, first things first, the measurements of this thing. The final product is 60 centimeters wide, 50 centimeters deep and 80 centimeters tall. All of it started with a few very crude sketches. I had no intention to make a beautiful sketch, the only thing I wanted was to know how big all the pieces of wood should be. I ended up with these pieces of plywood, which were then attached together. Next I attached a few trim boards on the inside of the box I just created, added a brace through the middle and attached the bottom of the tank over top. Next I used a ton of wood filler to fill in all of the cracks that were present. I then attached a lot more trim boards to the side and got this. And because I used a lot of wood filler, it needed to dry for about 2 or 3 days. And I also attached a few trim boards at the top on the inside. First a layer right above the glass and then a layer right underneath this edge. The lower layer was there so I could add a screen top. And the top layer is to attach the top of the tank. Now after a few days the wood filler had finally dried and I could sand it down. Next up, I covered the inside with some rubber seal, also including some seal fabric along all of the seams. And then it was back to sanding. I sanded the entire outside to make sure everything was super smooth. And then I added the nice stain you see on it right now. Next it was time to make sure it was watertight, but to be fair, it started leaking right away. So I brought it back inside and applied another few layers of rubber seal, and this time it still leaked. So again I brought it back inside, applied a few more layers of rubber seal, and after about 6 coats over the entire inside and 4 more coats up until this point, it finally held water. Next I made the door that's in here. I was not really comfortable with cutting glass, so I went through a few stores trying to find a picture frame that had a piece of glass the size I wanted. This was then fitted within a simple wooden frame and secured with some silicone. Onto the inside, I wanted to include some foam panels on which I could build, but I could not find the right kind of foam. So I just sprayed a bunch of expanding foam on a few pieces of paper, ripped the paper off and I created my own foam panels. I covered these in more silicone and applied a layer of cocoa fiber liner over top and then glued them inside of the tank. I got a few pieces of cork round and created this, and then used a chaotic amount of expanding foam to lock everything in place. And when everything was cured, I carved away at it. And as you can see here, I also used a few planters in there. Once I was happy with how everything looked, I applied even more silicone and placed completely dry chips of wood and cocoa fiber over top until I ended up with this. This was left to dry for 24 hours and then I moved outside to create the substrate. Now this is the exact same substrate as I used in the Philodendron, so if you haven't watched that video, you can click the card up here. The entire tank is covered in a layer of clay balls as a drainage layer with a piece of geotextile fabric over top. Next I covered it in a layer of charcoal and placed my substrate over top. Now it's time for the plants, and I could tell you what I placed in it initially, but quite a few of the plants died off. I'm not really sure why this happened, but if you want to know what plants are in here right now, there's a list in the description. And introduce the cleanup crew, which consists out of springtails and orange isopods. Unfortunately, a few months ago my cleanup crew kind of crashed. There are no isopods to be found anywhere, and the springtail population has also reduced significantly. And I think I know why this happened. There's just no ventilation. The humidity gets up way too high. There's no real moment throughout the day where the tank can just dry up a little bit, and by spraying it every day the problem only gets worse. Besides a lot of the plants dying and the isopod population crashing, I also noticed quite a lot of mold inside of the tank. In order to fix this problem, I did a few things. First off, I cut a few holes in the back of the tank above the screen mesh and installed a small USB fan behind one of them so I could blow fresh air inside of the tank. I also laid another USB fan on top of the mesh, so the fresh air would be pushed down into the tank. Although this definitely helped, it did not fix the problem. So something else I did was this. I added a few small wooden blocks between the top of the tank to keep the lid open just a little bit, and this actually helped way more than the fans. So most of the humidity problem is fixed now, but it's still not perfect. Now, in order to get the humidity the way I want it to be, I will need to keep the lid open further or cut a few more holes in the top of the tank. I chose to go with more holes. However, I'm not going to show you that in this video. There are a few more things I want to change in this tank, as well as with the rack it's on. So if you want to see how we'll make all of these changes, you're going to have to click right here. And as always, thanks for watching.